Excellent. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to ACDT number 41. Today's June 23rd, and we have a few items in the agenda. Um, and the main point being Fusaka Demo 2, and a couple of discussions regarding EIP 17907. So yeah, let's get started. I think we can start with the first item in the agenda. I also shared the link in the chat. Please chime in also if you want to leave comments over there. Yeah. So the first item is Fusaka.NET 2. Barnabas, I think you're the person that
Yep.
can. Thank you.
Uh, so basically, we are still waiting for client implementations. Therefore, we look like we're not going to be able to launch today. Hopefully, tomorrow we're going to have enough CL devs that say that their branch is ready. But as of right now, we only have EL implementations done. So we are still waiting.
Okay, thanks. I also want to share that we have a release for the ELS tests. Um, And we also have a Hive instance running right now. And Spencer, do you have a summary of which clients are passing or failing? Do you want to share? Um, just in general? Um, yeah, if you're talking, you're muted, but otherwise I can share what he relayed to me a couple minutes ago. Basically, only red is passing, if I understand correctly, the Hive tests, and the rest of the clients are not either running or passing, if that's what I understood correctly. But yeah, I can share the link in a few minutes for everyone to see which clients are passing or failing the tests. Um, anyway, is there any points that want to be raised about DevNet 2 by any of the clients that we should discuss? Any blockers, or any problems with the specifications or implementations that anyone wants to raise? We can start with execution clients. I see Ben from Nethermind. Do you have any updates on the status of DevNet 2 implementation?
Yeah, everything's okay apart from 7907, which, as mentioned in ACDE, will come in the latter half of this week.
Cool. Um, Anyone from Besu that wants to chime in?
Yeah, this is ready for devnet 2.
Any issues regarding the specification or anything in particular they want to raise?
Not really, no issues. Just waiting for the 7907 conversation, but no issues, yeah. Not for devnet 2.
Thank you. Um, Anyone from Geth? Marius, or is it Matt in the call?
I'm not sure if we have a branch yet, but we have 7907 implemented and we will prepare a branch with it.
Thank you. Anyone from Reth? I see Roman in the call. Do you have any updates on DevNet 2 implementation?
Yeah, we posted the wrench earlier today.
Thank you. Anyone from Aragon? What's the status on implementation?
Yeah, hi. Yeah, so we're finalizing the branch today. There is one failing test which I'm working on at the moment. It's for the block max ROP size EIP. So yeah, once I have this test passing, then we should be ready.
Thank you. I don't think there's anyone else from ELs. Did I miss someone from the ELs? Otherwise, anyone from the CLs? I see Enrico. Do you have any updates on the CL status?
Yeah, from tech, we have we're working on BPO related things, and we have a bunch of things to fix already. Not following closely this, but hopefully we have that sorted out soon. Part of that, yeah, nothing more.
Thank you. Anyone from Lighthouse available for status of devnet 2? Grandin, I think I see Solus in the. Do you have any updates?
Yeah, so we kind of have a version that is likely could be a candidate for testing. However, it seems we don't have another CL client to test against. So yes, if there is somebody who is very confident in their CL implementation, let us know. We will try to test against that other CL client.
Thank you. Lodestar, I see Phil. Is there any updates on the implementation?
Hey, we've been working on our branch. We have a couple more things here that we need to merge to be DevNet 2 ready, but I'll hand it off to Matthew to give updates on those specifically. If you have
There we
anything.
go. Can you hear me now? Sorry, phone issues. We're have PRs up for several of the features. All that's going to get merged today, and we'll be ready for tomorrow's launch that Barnabas mentioned.
Sounds great. Thank you. Anyone from any other CL client available to comment on status for devnet 2? Who wants to chime in? Casey mentions in the chat that Prism is ready for tomorrow lunch. Great. All right. Good. If nothing else, I think we can keep the chat on the status in the R&D Discord. Please post and ping anyone from the ePanda Ops team so they can know which image they need to use for devnet 2. And yeah, if anyone has any questions about the EL tests, also please ping us, either me or Spencer, so we can help you out. Obviously, there's like some conversation that is going to be had today, and the tests, but the tests are not going to change for this devnet 2. Probably they're going to change for devnet 3 in regards to EL testing. All right. Let's jump to the next topic, which is peer DAS testing.
Hi, sorry. Can I just
yeah.
chime in quickly?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, because I want to present something about the benchmarks of 7907. If that's
Yeah,
okay.
of course. I mean, yeah, of course. I wanted to just clear out if there was anyone who wanted to chime in about peer DAS or status updates about that. If not, we can just jump into 7907.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Barnabas, do you know who is the person to comment on peer DAS, or do we have anything that we want to discuss regarding peer DAS?
I don't think there's too much to discuss regarding PRS, to be honest. I think we want to launch devnet 2, and that's gonna give us the new forked edges stuff, and then we can start testing really the value capacity changes that have been introduced Berlin interrupt devnet 2. But at the first look, Berlin interrupt devnet 2 already has the updated CGC values, so yeah. I'm really just waiting for devnet 2 to launch so that we can have a nice new network to test everything with.
Perfect.
Maybe
Sounds good.
Sunnyside Labs. Maybe Sunnyside Labs have something.
Yeah, they mentioned in the chat that they want to present.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to chime in, Sunnyside Labs, yes, please just go ahead. We can. Yeah.
Yeah, hi. I will just briefly talk about the analysis that we found from Berlin interrupts and like few days before that. So yeah, I think like for some of us who went to Berlin knows that most of the CL clients like for all the CL clients we tested single CL devnets. So we ran like 18 devnets in total at the end, and we found that all the CL clients except for Nimbus at the time were able to reach up to 72 blobs per block. Congratulations. And we made analysis on where were the bottlenecks. So please have a look. Every CL has some bottlenecks when it reaches to 72 blobs. And for the next up, we may do network bandwidth limiting tests, but the metrics we gathered for full nodes don't look that great. Grandine and Lighthouse full nodes consume 20 megabits per second on average, and others were above 80 or 100 megabits per second. So this was the major bottleneck we found. Yeah, other than that, there are some others that are also part of the report, which I wouldn't say it now because they are too long, but please have a look.
Thank you.
How could yeah.
Yeah, but sorry, I cut you off. Please go ahead.
I think Ansgar has a question about stability on the realistic networking. So we mainly focus on the limitation side. So at the very worst case, what happens? So we at the moment we didn't limit any network bandwidth, and we are about to begin constraining the network. But what we found so far is that we probably have the network failing much before than 72 blobs per block because full nodes are consuming a lot more than expected.
Well, and maybe just to briefly ask, how close are we to understanding why that is the case?
In the report, I mentioned that number of column verification is a lot for some of the CLs. That might be the issue. And not sure why, but it was generally increasing linearly when number of blobs increased. And ELs didn't have much impact on that.
Yeah. So one question here. Were you testing only with publicly available blobs?
Yes.
Right. And were you able to trace down if the failure to propagate or maybe the amplification was at the EL level or at the CL level?
Sorry, I didn't quite get the question.
Yeah, so there's so blobs propagate. So if you're testing with public blobs, there's type 3 transactions that propagate in the EL blob pool, right? So what we're trying to kind of like figure out maybe as a first step is um, whether the type 3 transactions fail to propagate or whether they propagated, but somehow the CL was kind of like amplifying traffic too much or something.
I think the latter was the case. So we also tried to see EL usage, but it didn't increase that much. So, um, yeah, the notable difference was between Lighthouse Grandine compared to others. So others were using um, like 80 megabits per second more on average than Lighthouse and Grandine. What did you mention
Cool.
was linearly sorry, thank you. Linearly scaling with blobs. So we used Spammer to increase blobs over time, like plus one blob every 5 minutes. And then when we saw as time passes, we saw um, the network traffic was also linearly increasing.
Yeah, but that's normal with like that's what we expect, isn't it? That's why I'm asking because many things is the only design, many things are linearly scaling with the number of blobs. So that's why I want to understand if you've seen something unexpected or it's actually what we expect. So the message sizes, the column size is linearly growing, and anything done on the column level is just linearly growing with the increase of number of blobs with the 1D design.
Yes, but I don't think we expected this much of network usage, don't we?
Yeah, no, the question is, was it the network usage linearly scaling and it's more than what you would expect even with 4 blobs? You just don't notice because it's below this threshold of noticing it. Or so if network usage was linearly scaling, that means that it's just more than even with small number of blobs than what we would expect, rather than.
Yeah, I think we need to really dissect these results closely. So I can, from the peer-to-peer networking team, we can do that. We'll look closely at the report and we'll chat with the Sunnyside Labs team to get to the bottom of what might be happening here. There's also kind of like a duplicate effect factor here. I don't know what the status of implementations is with regards to the latest improvements that we've introduced, things like IDO 1 and other things, which, by the way, would only be visible really when there is a network latency, which I don't think in this particular case there was, right? There was no specific network configuration enforced here, as far as I understand.
No,
There is
no
Right.
limit at all.
There's
Yeah.
geographic. So you have the geographically distributed. So you have some latency effect, but
Right, yeah. But it was all on the same AES, right? Probably run on AWS or something like that,
On
or
DigitalOcean.
DigitalOcean, I think. Yeah, right, yeah. So it's not real world effects. I do think that we need to look at exactly the commits of the networking stack that the clients were running at that point in time and the implementation of some of the latest optimizations. But yeah, this is really good flag. We'll look into this.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we will collaborate with you guys. Thank you so much.
Raul, do you mention there's something about engine Get Blobs Speed 2 that you want to talk about? I think we can go into
Yeah,
that first and then come back to 7907 because
yeah,
we
yeah,
have
sure.
very specific.
So yeah, I think it's the relevant context. So I submitted this PR earlier today. This basically proposes a small change to Get Blobs Speed 2 to restore the previous functionality where Get Blobs would return partial hits. So when in V2, we switch to an all or nothing behavior where if a single blob is missing from the EL blob pool, then the whole response would be a null, which made sense from the perspective of the current design of PeerDAS, which can only utilize full columns. So if you're missing a single blob, then you're missing a cell in that column, and there's nothing that you can do. So you have to wait for the network to receive that column from the network on the CL side. But we're working on a bunch of optimizations at the peer-to-peer networking level, specifically at the gossip sub level, that would allow us to send cell level deltas. And of course, there's like we're prototyping these, and there's a bunch of testing that we need to do to figure out specifically the timing conditions that would lead to good results in good outcomes in this case. But yeah, the idea is to make whatever is available in the EL useful to the CL so that we can leverage optimizations that we can introduce without forks in the network. So these would be implementation level optimizations. And yeah, so this gives us, so basically what this PR is doing is proposing that we introduce a partial response flag to the request payload of Get Blobs Speed 2. When that is true, we would return the blobs that are available and null for the blobs that aren't. And if that is false, we would just continue with the current behavior, which is returning a null for as a global response. We would, at this stage, we would probably deploy CLs would be using the false value here. But then as we roll out these optimizations, as we agree on them and we implement them, we test them and we see they lead to good results, they could switch to a true and start utilizing the data that's available in the blob pool. And the reason that we suggest, Mikhail had a question of why don't we use partial response true as the default logic? The reason is that currently the CL won't be able to utilize the partial responses, but we do want the flexibility so that we can switch to that behavior, to the partial response false behavior when sorry, the other way around, I think. Yeah, so that we can switch to partial response whenever we ship the optimization. Yeah, so Marius, the idea, so I see you asked, why don't we just return partial responses anyway? And the reason is that we can't use those partial responses. So would be undergoing the cost of survey on both sides for nothing. So yeah, this flag would make it dynamic.
Yes, but I think in this case, I would just say let's make this the default behavior and not introduce another flag. Like the cost of survey is not that much, and like my personal preference would just be to make this the default behavior as we had it before the spec changed, and let the CLs filter out, or like look at the responses and see how many of those blobs they do not, if they have all of them, and if not, they will just not use it.
Functionally speaking, that's good. That works for us. I was just kind of like going the extra mile here, just in case we want to save the survey cost. If we get to, say, for example, 36 blobs before this optimization, and we realize that the base 64 encoding is like, I don't know, it's adding like maybe 20 milliseconds, 30 milliseconds, or something like that. And we kind of like, on each side, I don't know how much that is. I haven't benchmarked it. But yeah, it would be currently returning those blobs would not be useful right now on the CL anyway. So that's why I thought this would be a simple solution to save extra work. Well, we both know that it's not useful. But I don't have a preference. Just returning partial responses by default and removing the flag is good enough for us.
I think just want to raise the point that maybe if we keep the discussion into the PR, please just chime in, and just to get this either merged or just to not block this PR. Do you need any feedback in a specific role that would help get this PR either merged or closed?
Yeah, so I would just like a outcome here. I think it's a very simple issue to agree on. And it seems like based on the reactions on the chat, I see that most people seem to be agreeing that we just remove the option. So I would just what I'm gonna do if people think it's fine, I'm just gonna rehash this PR and just remove the flag altogether and just change the behavior. Just to get to a solution here is just very simple.
Cool. Any opposition on that resolution? Okay, that sounds good then. Thank you. If nothing else, I wanted just to raise this point by Ansgar in the chat regarding timeline. Ansgar, do you want to comment or ask the question? Just
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. Feel free to tell me if this is just not a good fit to ask it on this call. I'm just wondering right now, whether we are working towards like a specific list, like checklist or something of remaining stages here between now and being ready to basically start forking the test nets in terms of PLS, like what exactly we need to see, also to inform our choice on the exact details of which values we use for the BPO. And if we have a specific like checklist in mind, then A, is that written down somewhere or something that could be linked? And B, what the rough timeline, I mean, again, optimistic, of course, would look like for this.
I don't know who the person to answer this, but maybe just to bring some context, Barnabas, do you have any like comments on this that you want to bring up? It's a sense to me that we want stability, right? In on at least one of the
Yeah.
devnets before. Yeah.
Yeah, we ideally want a stable spec, like a frozen spec, which it seems like we don't even have right now. We most likely going to be going into DevNet 3 in possibly 2 weeks from now, or maybe even a bit later. By then, all these questions that were raised today should be clarified, and then we can actually discuss about what else do we actually need. Because we are now at a happy case scenario where everything is working with limited number of blobs. Testing BPO numbers is impossible to do on any testnet. So we're gonna need to kind of do analysis after the fork follow and determine the BPO values based on that.
I mean, one thing is I think as soon as DevNet the next DevNet is stable, like without necessarily waiting for a DevNet 3, even if let's say I don't know this small change is made that we just discussed, we should probably start like doing more of the kind of tests that now the Sunnyside Labs people are doing and just really like I mean yes we probably cannot fully figure out the safe number of blobs for the PPO schedule, but just generally we should start working towards like understanding what the bottlenecks on the CL network inside are better than we do now. So part of that is just like following up on I think, the questions that were raised by the report. But yeah, ideally, it would be nice if we can maybe at some point start in parallel, like spinning up some like bigger devnets than even, 50 nodes. And maybe, yeah, just start understanding really what the networking level or like verification level kind of bottlenecks are. I think then, I mean, once we understand that, there's not it's hard to say timelines because then it might take like we don't know how long it's going to take to address those bottlenecks, but at least like having like a complete list of all the things that are not fully ready in terms of the networking performance would be the start, I guess.
Yeah, sure. But I also feel like fundamentals should be working before we doing any kind of tests. So like validator custody is a fundamental feature. Backfilling, in my opinion, should be a fundamental feature that all CLs support, and currently none of them support it. So we still have a bunch of fundamental topics that are not yet implemented by many CL devs, and doing stress tests and doing edge case testing already when we can't even do backfills seems a bit stretched out.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should first have at least devnet 2 being stable. And in the meantime, yeah, I mean the same kind of reports and tests that are being done now can still be done and we can investigate them. But yeah, I think other than maybe, you know, what we discussed today, we shouldn't make any bigger changes to the spec. So hopefully like devnet 2 being stable is like the, you know, kind of the last point at which like once we see devnet 2 stable, then we really can start doing these other tests more seriously.
And maybe one last follow-up question then. That's helpful. Do we expect to basically just, as long as say once we start stress testing really out on the realistic networking conditions, if we get and on Fulu, and basically we get some sort of numbers that with count client behavior we can support, is the expectation, as long as those don't look horrible, we would just then immediately base the BPO numbers on top of that and start rolling towards mainnet, moving towards mainnet rollout? Or do we expect to basically try to have one or several rounds of feedback of trying to basically unblock the bottlenecks and get to highest possible performance and only then lock in the BPO numbers? And do we know like where that kind of decision cutoff would be in terms of what numbers we would have to see to immediately move towards rollout versus keep it improving? Or will we just make these decisions on the fly as we get closer to that?
I think from my perspective, what would be useful is to continue working, for example. So both kinds of testing that Barnabas and Francesco were mentioning are useful, but also like finding those bottlenecks and the networking level bottlenecks, and specifically those that are resulting from maybe the design of things that like then place specific workloads on the network and so on. Like those would be really important to find as soon as possible. So the kind of benchmarking that Sunnyside Labs is doing is very useful at this stage. So we just need to get to more realistic scenarios so that we can start seeing those issues, larger scales, and also really understanding what the version of clients that were used and the specific configurations at the networking level, machine level, and so on were as well. I would say from like what would happen next. I would assume that pure DAS in itself, nothing about the design is likely going to change. So based on what we discover, there will be specific maybe implementation level changes that we can adjust, optimizations. We can review some code and like some parts of how the implementations are using the networking stack itself, maybe even like machine tuning. There's a bunch of things that we can do there that would potentially unlock higher numbers and higher levels of scale. And based on that, I would assume that we would set the BPO schedule.
All right. Just to try to finalize the discussion here, I think we can see the outcome of devnet 2 and then continue to discuss this in ACDC. If that sounds good by everyone. All right. Cool. Thanks, Raul and Sunnyside Labs for the discussion. Yeah, and now going back to EIP 7907, I think Johan wanted to discuss the current status and the findings of benchmarking. Johan, do you want to chime in?
Yes, let me quickly share my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
And also my mouse?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
very cool, very cool. All right, Marius and me, we did some 7907 benchmarks on the shadow fork of mainnet. So we can't test bigger contracts there because we can't deploy those. What we did there is we sent transactions with a gas limit of 30 million. And we have 6 targets. One is Xcode size small. What we do here is we call Xcode size on the target. This calls for more than 11,000 unique contracts with a size of 12 kilobytes. Also for Xcode size big, this targets the maximum contract size which you can currently deploy of 24 kilobytes. The reason for this is that if you have these 2 results, you could extrapolate the results to somewhat see what would happen if you would, for instance, double this size. What we also did is we did a static call on these small contracts, a static call on these big contracts, so 12 kilobytes and 24 kilobytes, and this includes jump test analysis. What it does is, at the start of the contract, it will jump to the end of the contract, and this contract itself is completely filled with jump tests. So you should really analyze this. And also for these contracts, each contract is unique, so it is forced to do this jump test analysis every time. And also extra, this is static call small and static call big, and this calls into unique contracts, and it does not do the jump test analysis there because it immediately executes the stop opcode, so it does not have this jump analysis. Well, here are the results. These are the average execution times of every client. Well, you can see that Besu, for instance, is the slowest apparently. There are also some very weird results. For instance, Gef has for Xcode size small and Xcode size big. It has a slower average, a faster execution time for the big Xcode size contract. So that's a very weird result. But yeah, what we can see, this is already like somewhat alarming, I would say, that Besu has let's say more than 800 milliseconds execution time for these statical big jump test contracts. And this is only for a gas limit of 30 million. So it's not like our target, which I think is 60 million or something like that. So yeah, this is maybe somewhat alarming. We also have like the worst case blocks. This was more than a second for Xcode size small for Besu. Almost a second for Nevermind for the statical small jump test. Well, this is of course also a interesting result because we would assume that the big contracts will be the worst case here. Gef is more than half a second for statical big. Ref is 250 milliseconds for Xcode size big. And Irigon, the worst case is 130 milliseconds for statical big. And yeah, just a disclaimer, these results are preliminary because we also need to dig into the behavior at 45 million gas, 60 million gas, 100 million gas. And we also need to see what happens. And for this, we will need a new fork because we will need clients which would support deploying contracts which are bigger than 24 kilobytes to analyze this behavior. And of course, also this weird behavior for Gef. Why is this Xcode size small worse than the Xcode size big? And also, like, we have to look into the client's caching behavior because this could also influence the behavior. And as a general point, I think the testing team has also seen this. Currently, there are some edge cases in the ERP and in the implementation, and also to write the tests that are not very well specified in the ERP yet. So we should specify these things in the ERP to make this clear. And I'm seeing a question in the chat, how are the tests executed? But Marius comments on this. Maybe Marius has to add something here, or someone has a question.
I think Marius already responded that it was run on Bottleneck.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so just as the disclaimer, we need more time to look into this, but as we've seen, the times are very not super nice for some clients. So yeah. And this is so without any code size increase for 24 kilobyte contracts max.
If I can weigh in, it might depend on which hardware are you running, because a lot of the jump test is can be vectorized, and that depends on the hardware. I expect this was hardware support x86 supporting AWX2 hardware, so 256-bit instructions. You can optimize for also AWX 512 and for ARM steamed instructions, but the results will vary. You can optimize potentially the jump test analysis for the best case, average case, that it will have more jump test or more push opcodes. And if you optimize for one, you kind of potentially are trade-offing for the second one. So that's another thing that some clients can optimize for one, some clients for the other, but it's hard to have something that would work for both, especially fast. So that's another potential problem. That the worst case is one or the other, right? Or either all pushes or no jump test, or full jump test without pushes. What else? Yeah, that's kind of it. That it can be hardware dependent. It can be implementation dependent on the optimization side a bit. Just wanted to give more context.
Yeah, okay, just to weigh in on that, you are right, because you can optimize for either the push opcode or for the jump test opcode. But of course, what we want to test here is the worst case. So yeah, then I will just add a jump test analysis for the push also, so that you can't really optimize for one or the other. You will still get like the worst case out of it. Yeah, in the end.
Yeah, but it would be good to have benchmarks for both cases, because it can be very dependent on which client chooses.
Yeah, I agree. I will add this. Yeah, good point.
Also, we will be adding additional metadata and safe jump test probably to disk, along with some kind of index for size.
Yeah, cool. Sounds good. Yeah, just to mention also for 7907, this has the implicit behavior that you have to cache either cache this on disk or cache this in memory, like this code hash to the code size lookup table. Because if you don't do this, then well, you will really run into issues that you have to read massive data from the disk. And this is really implicit that every client adds this. I will also add a test to East for this to test it.
Yeah, maybe then I can, because I wanted to basically talk about that specific thing. So to me, basically, the nice thing in a way, at least about the jump test worst case, is that the jump test should, at least in principle, not be a new worst case caused by this EAP, because the idea is that the EAP charges proportional to code size, right? So now a contract of double the size should also cost double the amount of gas. And the problem that we just have is that you can only really enforce that once you know the size of the contract, but you run the jump test analysis after you know the size of the contract. So in principle, by this point, there's no way of DOSing the client. Basically, like, yes, jump test runs slower if the size is larger, but basically this is then, if there is an issue here, then it's just an existing performance issue, which we still have to take seriously and tackle, but it's not a new issue caused by the EIP around jump test, at least. Whereas the one thing that you can't so easily bound by this pricing is the reading from the database itself, as you just said. So basically, like, there you need to basically choose a strategy. Either you just accept that now your worst case got worse, maybe not quite twice, because it's still a sequential read, so it's maybe a bit faster than twice as bad, but we need metrics on this, right? Like how bad the performance degradation gets, and you just accept that. Or you implement this optimization that you have a index that you keep, that is a mapping of contract to contracted address or hash to the size. My big argument here would be that I personally think we can't treat this index as an afterthought. I think we need to have a agreed upon standardized behavior across all clients, because if we don't, basically, then again we have now very variable worst cases. So I think we need to have an agreed upon. We need to have this decision, basically, like, do we want this index mandated in all clients by the time Fusaka rolls out or not? And in general, I personally, if we lean towards doing it, then I have some pretty severe concerns around this index in general. I personally really dislike that it's not in any way enshrined, meaning that there's no like root hash of it committed to anywhere, and that really creates quite a few issues. In the short term, for example, already there's some uncertainties around how it interacts with block level access lists, because you basically have to indicate that the code size was read instead of the code itself. So you basically have to modify the format there, which is maybe possible. But then once you go to ZK witnesses, which is something that we at least want to start doing very soon, in parallel also this year, there it basically becomes impossible, because in ZK you need to be able to have some sort of trace back to some trusted hash, and that just doesn't exist for this index. So within the ZK proof, you'd always have to load the full code, even if then you actually run out of gas and can't actually use it. So that means that further degrades ZK performance. And in general, I personally think that this index has pretty severe forward compatibility considerations that I just don't see, like, they are not addressed at all in the EIP. Which to me means that actually it's this late into the fork, I have severe headaches about it. But basically, sorry, this was a bit too long, but like, again, general point is I really think we can't treat this index as an afterthought. We need to have standardized behavior across all clients and agreed upon how we handle these concerns.
Yeah, I would also like to chime in on exactly like this index. What I would personally like to see is that we encode this code size into the state tree. And I know this is like a very big thing, because then we would alter the state tree. But if we would launch Ethereum now, then likely what we will do is we would put the code size into the account RLP, which we would save into the state tree. So then what we will do is we now have 4 items in the account. That will be the nonce, the balance, the code hash, and the state root. And what we will then do, if for instance we would relaunch Ethereum, then we will add this extra item of code size. And I know that we can't really add something to the state tree now, but that would be the ideal and the most simple solution, I would say, to this problem. And this is also an idea from Guyan, by the way. So thanks for that idea. Yeah.
Sorry, quick question. We already found some issues related to Xcode hash, Xcode size, and we fixed few of them, and we are working on other issues related to code cache in general. I would like to know if when we push like these changes on the performance branch, how we can trigger the same tests. Can I just ping you and then run them again?
You mean as like a state test?
I mean the ones that you just shared related to.
Yes. Okay. Yes. I should add these tests to the fixtures, I think, to the state tests. Would that work?
I'm not sure, because my question in the chat was how do we collect those results? And
yes.
Marius said that those results are from perfnet, which is a shadow fork of mainnet, from what I understood.
Yes.
And that's perfect. That's actually perfect, because like the nodes are warmed up, so that's perfect for Besu. And would like actually to get the results again when we have the fixes, like the performance fixes.
Okay, yeah, that's actually a very good point, because also one of the reasons why we did this on a shadow fork is because we want this on like a very large database. So for instance, like a fork of mainnet, because if you would just do the state test, then your database size is, well, not large enough. And we would really want to test this like on a big database like mainnet. For that, I think this is something for PandaOps, because they run these shadow forks, and then we likely have to update your client to a new version, and then we can run it again and see what the results are.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, thank you. And
I think
please
another
also,
point is that, sorry, please
and please
go
also
ahead.
ping me on Discord if you need something. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Thank you. Johan, if you could summarize somewhere the list of tests that were run in the Perfnet, that would be nice because we can focus on either improving those or adding them to the releases to, even if they are not as significant as when running in Perfnet. I think it would be helpful to know which ones are the ones that are being run.
Yeah, I will add this to the east. Yeah, good point.
Thank you. All right. Any comments from the clients or anything that anyone else that wants to chime in on the results or the I don't think we touch on the spec side. I think one question would be, Johan, does this affect the current specification, or does it require changes to the EIP in any way that you feel that need to be done?
That's a good question. For that, I'm not really sure. I think that, yeah, from the testing team, there are already some points which might be considered underspecified. I think those should be specified. Yes, but for now, I don't really have some big things here to add. Yeah, these are just benchmark results. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. From the devnet 2 perspective, I don't think we're changing the current test. It would be too last minute, so I think we can wait until tomorrow when devnet 2 launches, and then if it results that we need to change something to the EIP, it would need to go into devnet 3, in my opinion. All right. And one last question from Ansgar. How many EL clients looked into the code size index at all so far? Are there any comments on any clients? Is this something that everyone has considered, or what's the status of the rest of the clients? If not, there's one comment from Barnabas that definitely should only have repricing of EIPs. Yeah, which makes sense.
Well, we agreed on ACD that 7907 PR from light client will go in as well.
That was
Yeah.
the cap on contract size.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just wanted to chime in to say that if there's any changes that need to be done, because we found significant performance bottlenecks, is that a question of whether we continue with the current state of the EIP or does it need any modification? I think we still have to discuss this, but yeah, I'm not sure about the answer to that, to be honest. Yeah. Any other comments about 7907? I still see a lot of chatter in the a lot of messages in the chat.
Yeah,
But I
maybe
think,
just
yeah.
maybe just to chime in. I think that for DevNet 2, the current state of the EIP is the one which is scheduled for DevNet 2. There is an unmerged PR, which is what Lucas just posted. It's 9910. That's Light Client's PR. I think that one was scheduled for DevNet 3. But for DevNet 2, I think the current spec and maybe also the fixtures which got released, I think that is the 256 kilobyte limit of the EIP.
Yes, that is correct. We have 256 kilobytes. So the fixtures right now in the tests are for the current version that is merged into master of the EIP.
Yeah, I complained about it like 3 times already, and it doesn't make sense to go with that version and change, but it was added already, and that then this is roadblock and we cannot change it. It's my opinion, this is worthless information, including it in the 256 version.
Okay, should I then open a PR which only changes this max code size to 40 kilobytes and then use that specification for devnet 2?
I think, in my opinion, it's too late to change anything for devnet 2. Yeah, I think letting it as is for devnet 2, I think is the only thing that we can go do now and get more information once that devnet 2 is out. Yep. Also, I think the PR is from Matt of the EIP. I think it would be nice if he can comment on it, but I think he's not in the call. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. All right. So I think the final point is that we continue as is for devnet 2. So 256 kilowatts and the current state of the master EIP that is currently merged, and when we reassess either in ACDE or async for the final changes to the EIP. Does that sound good by everyone, or any comments or counterpoints? Cool. All right. So that's it, and we only have 2 minutes left. Are there any other comments or quick final thoughts that we should do before closing the call? If not, thank you everyone for joining, and we see you on ACDC on Thursday. All right. Thank you.